Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Very, very special guest this week. We have the executive director of Beat the Streets Chicago, Mike Powell. Mike, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It really is my honor, like truly. So just for some context, I met Mike maybe 6 months ago or so. I was able to attend an event here in Chicago, Beat the Streets event, and kind of see for myself the facility and meet some of these awesome kids and Mike himself and some of the other coaches. And to say I was impressed is an understatement. But this is an opportunity, you know, I asked Mike, he graciously accepted to come on the show just so we can learn more about Beat the Streets himself, and share this with the world, because if you're not aware, this is just amazing. This is an amazing organization. This is for my benefit selfishly, as it is anyone else's, I hope. With that, I guess I threw a lot out there. Mike, just kind of high level before we jump into kind of current day Beat the Streets. How did you get involved with the organization, and maybe can you share a little bit about your personally kind of wrestling background as well?
Sure. So I've been in. I'll start with wrestling if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I started wrestling. I was like climbing off the walls. I think I got kicked out of karate class for beating up my friend. I was just kind of a wild, very physical child. My dad got me into wrestling when I was five. So I've been in the sport now. This is my 42nd year in the sport, consecutive. So wrestling has shaped me in a way that I can never repay it. That's why I'm involved with Beat the Streets. That's why I went into coaching. Wrestling got me to college, got me through college while I was finding myself and maturing, much needed. And I tell people wrestling every good thing in my life, from my wife to my self-confidence, my work ethic, the type of father I am. Everything I have is directly or tangentially related to my time in the sport of wrestling. So my life's work is creating opportunities for other people to build themselves in our sport.
Yeah. No,
I coached high school for years, and I've now transitioned to Beat the Streets.
Now, were you coaching here in the Midwest or Chicago?
I coached at Oak Park River Forest High School.
That's right. Yeah. I think I recall you telling me.
We had a great run. It was incredibly rewarding.
Mm-hmm. You had like some national champions, right? Definitely.
Yeah, we had two teams that were ranked number one in the country at the end of the year.
Right.
We were multi-time state champions. We had, I think one year, our kids from Oak Park at Fargo, which is the biggest wrestling tournament in the world.
Sure.
So you're familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Our kids would have got third as a state from Oak Park. I think we had 14 All-Americans. It was in freestyle, and I think we would have been second in Greco behind Illinois.
Amazing.
So yeah, so we had a great run. We had a lot, tons of fun. We had great kids, and it really informed what was going to happen with me at Beat the Streets, because a lot of our kids were single parent households. A lot of them were at-risk minorities. I failed a lot, and we had a lot of success with those kids academically, emotionally, and obviously with wrestling. But our kids went to UCLA, the Naval Academy, Michigan, Illinois, Northwestern. So we had a great run there. I think the two best teams we ever had, we finished number one and number two in the school for men's GPAs at Oak Park.
Oh, wow.
We really prided ourselves on serving the whole child, being invested year round in every aspect of their lives. And that's what we're trying to now take to Beat the Streets.
It's actually like I don't know. I try not to get super. I don't want to impart anybody any religious thing or anything, but sometimes I hear things and I'm like, I don't know if that's the universe, if that's God, but that really was a clear road for you to beat the streets. All of those lessons you learned with those kids. And I just, as an athlete and someone who has coached part-time, never full-time in my life, I've assistant coach, I understand a little bit of what that commitment means. And what, again, as an athlete, how my coaches touched my life, some of them forever, and you get to do this full time, and you got to, it's one thing to be successful and have students and athletes that, you know, get accolades and win medals, and that's amazing, and that's validating in and of itself. Some people can totally have a fulfilling career on that, but what you speak to are the other things, serving the whole child and the GPA, and I think that's really special, Mike. Like, I think that's really unique.
Well, thank you. That's our mission at Beat the Streets. That's our goal is, when they're 18 years old, they weren't part of a wrestling club. You know, they were part of an organization that helped them build themselves in every area. The soft skills, which, you know, are more important than the hard skills, you know, grit, you know, perspective, delayed gratification, you know, our 5 values at Beat the Streets, we call them our Aggie values, are accountability, gratitude, grit, integrity, and excellence. And it informs everything we do. And so if we can teach those through wrestling, that's great, but we don't stop on the mat. You know, I've got some initiatives I'd love to tell you about, and but we do a lot of off the mat stuff and a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of rides home in cars after difficult days. There's a lot of home visits. There's a lot of calls to mom, you know, so there's a lot of things that you don't see, and I frankly probably can't talk about, that we're doing with our high impact group that, you know, will hopefully move the needle for them. You know, our goal is to help build, and we don't create anything. They create it in themselves. We provide the opportunity, we push them, you know, we get them to belong to something bigger than themselves, so we really can push them. That's based on our trilogy of trust, love, and truth. You know, you don't get to truth unless you have trust and love. And so we build that with our high impact kids, and then, you know, we push them hard. And the goal is so that, you know, the goal is that they haven't been in just a safe place. You know, that they're not just in a wrestling club, that they're ready to attack life at 18. They're ready to go on, and they're not coming home from college. You know, if they're going to be in a trade or the military, they're going to excel. And, you know, we got some guys who want to be welders that are at Morton College of Wrestling at Morton. Great career. I said to them, okay, let me be clear that 10 years from now, you shouldn't just be a welder. You should be in charge of whatever welding group you have. And in 20 years, you should be the head of the union. You know, so there's a lot of that where we're really trying to help open a world up for these kids and give them the skill set necessary to change their trajectory, you know, to change their families' lives forever. So,
you touched on one thing briefly there that was mind blowing to me, but you touched on how you help teach and impart soft skills and how they're as important or more important than the hard skills. That's mind blowing from a wrestling coach, because that is something you take the rest of your life, and you're going to need more. And it's one thing to develop the mental fortitude and have the assurance of, I know I can run through that wall because I've done it before, but that doesn't serve you in a boardroom. Like, it will help you. So that was, wow, very profound. I felt like what you just said. And then I wanted to circle back to another thing too, that I just observed when I was at the function I attended. 2 things, and they're total compliments to you. But one was, you were speaking to the youth, to the kids, and some parents, but, you know, to the kids, and you were really imparting a message of, and you guys should come back. You're always a part of this, you know, and come back and volunteer, and, you know, and not just pursue college to their career. But I also found that was so refreshing. I was thinking, I don't know that I ever had a college coach or high school coach say, like, and be here, come back, be involved. You know, I was like, I don't know, you know, so I thought that was really special too, like something, a part of the environment there you were fostering as well.
We hope. You know, we hope they'll come back and coach for us or volunteer for us, or if they're on the board someday, you know, donate to us. But, you know, we call it the Beat the Streets family for a reason. We track our kids through college. A lot of them come back and intern with us. You know, we're going to help a bunch of them. We are already helping a bunch of them get their first job out of college or in trade school. You know, so we have a kid that wanted to be a Navy SEAL, so we connected him to one of my ex-wrestlers who's a Navy SEAL. Wow. You know, so there's all this opportunity for us to stay in contact, to continue to enrich their lives, right? With the idea that at some point the tables turn and it'll be your time to serve. And if you want this city to be a better place, then it can't just be about you. And that was another part of my message there is college is a very selfish time, and for good reason. But if you can take some of your time and start thinking about the planning of the time when you're going to give back, right. And that may be Beat the Streets Chicago, it may be Beat the Streets Philly, you know, it may be the Boys and Girls Club somewhere, you know, but we want our kids to recognize that Mike Boyd, our coach, Coach V, our female coach, the people that are around them, we serve those kids, and that they're being served in a way that is powerful and meaningful, and that they could do the same thing. And one of the things that kind of pushed me in this as a kid was my father just constantly said, there'll be a day where you have an opportunity to give back. And I mean, he said, give back to me 10,000 times. And it was like ingrained in me. Yeah. I knew I wanted to be a life-changing coach, you know, and
that's amazing. No, and what a man there to impart that influence on you, because our instincts are selfish. That's just human. Yeah. I mean, and then
particularly if you're a macho male, you know, it's just so easy to be narcissistic and self-serving, and I, you know, I have parts of that in me, and
sure, I get it.
It's things I fight, you know, and so, you know, in coaching these kids to be grateful, to give back, to serve, I'm also coaching myself, you know, and the adults around me that I'm mentoring. So, you know, I think we're all in it together. We're all learning together. We're all growing together. We're all serving together, hopefully.
Yeah. You know, when I think back to like wrestling, other than a couple key matches or moments, you know, the majority of the memories, 80%, 90% are, and it's so funny in retrospect, it's the bus rides, it's the hotels, it's the after practice talk or the cool down or those group moments. And it's funny because when I lived it, I prided myself on, hey, I'm the only man on that mat other than my opponent. You know, like, this is on me. It's not a football team. It's not a basketball team. And I love that individual part of it. But at the end of the day, I enjoy dual meets. I enjoy state, you know, so I think it's so great that your environment is so about the team first, or through that lens. That's pretty great.
Thank you. That you know, I think that was apparent at the Beat the Streets National Duels. So we hosted the first ever Beat the Streets National Duels. We had 9 Beat the Streets teams from around the country. So from East Coast to West Coast and down South. And our boys won in the last match. Max Rosen, the hardest working kid in show business. He pinned a guy from Cleveland to win the national championship. And it was such a team atmosphere. And I'll tell you that my best memories as a coach were winning dual meets. Or even losing some dual meets, really, just being together as a team. But I would add one other thing, if I could, to the wrestling experience. And I tell people all this. I love the camaraderie. I love the teammates. I love those are your brothers. Like, they're suffering with you. You know what I mean? They're doing these. They're in college, at least. They're in the sauna with you. You know, they're experiencing this incredible lifestyle that you're experiencing that nobody else could possibly comprehend. And that goes along with putting yourself out there on the wrestling mat.
Yeah.
You know, that I mean, I equate that. I mean, a conference championship in high school is as nerve-wracking as, you know, bases loaded, 3-2 count in the 7th game of the World Series. 100%. You're like half naked with no equipment, and so there's a chance that another man may manhandle you, or another woman, right? So there's that. But I think there's something special about wrestling beyond that. And that is that, at least my memories in the sport, where I felt like I grew as a man, were during those weight cuts when I was all alone, sometimes with teammates, but, you know, like the suffering and knowing you can get through that, and knowing that on the other side is something great, and the ability to do that over and over and over again, and keep perspective and stay positive, which I didn't always do. Oftentimes I didn't do. I learned those lessons. You know, and then the emotional growth that comes from, you know, I remember the first time my college coach wrestled me, Dwayne Goldman. This guy was an Olympic alternate, 4-time Big Ten champ, 4-time NCAA finalist. He beat me so ruthlessly that I called my mom, who I hadn't talked to in 8 months, and apologized for everything I ever did to her. I cried to her. That doesn't exist in sport. I mean, tell me another sport where a coach can just, you know, put his hands on a kid legally, you know. But afterwards, you know, he and I sat there and talked. And you know, and it was just, and and you know, the emotional growth that comes from giving it your all and losing in front of 1,000 people or 10,000 or 40,000 people at the NCAA tournament, you know, the emotional growth that comes out of those losses and those very tough times of wrestling, it's like nothing you can't experience that anywhere else.
No way. Yeah.
So,
totally unique.
that's why wrestling, I call it the single greatest vehicle for self-improvement in the world. And that's why we choose it at Beat the Streets. We do a lot of things off the mat, but we know our engine is wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, they say this is arguable or whatever, but in my opinion, you know, between wrestling and running or track, what's the oldest sport in the world? You know, it's wrestling, man. It's wrestling. I cannot believe that two people, when there was one apple or one whatever left, they fought for that thing. That's wrestling. They didn't run it. They didn't run a race.
And running is awesome, and it's hard, just like swimming. But I tell people, you know, imagine running the last part of an 800. You know, that's how tired you are while somebody is pounding on your head.
Oh, I know.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's every day in wrestling.
Every day. Yeah. So. It's a whole different type of conditioning, strength requirement, and then the nerves, just everything is so, look, it's very character building. I don't know anybody that can do it and not be changed by the experience. Go through one wrestling season, you know.
I don't know any wrestler who, as an adult, doesn't credit wrestling with
100%. Yeah,
everything. You know, everybody says that. So, and there's good reason for it. So.
Well, another thing I wanted to pick your brain on too. This was the second kind of thing I had observed, also that function that I promise I had never seen before, and maybe it's just I'm naive, but all of the young lady wrestlers, which you have an awesome girls team and great participation. Every one of those girls, I keep wanting to say women, young ladies, walked with confidence. Their heads were up, their shoulders were back. Like, they were just these confident young ladies. And I thought, like, man, like, that is like a refreshing thing to see in a way. Like, I have a 13-year-old daughter, you know, so I was just,
it's the best.
I was just saw that. Sorry. And I was like, man, this is really, I don't know that I've ever seen this before. Like, these confident, capable young girls, like, what is that like? You know, what is that experience? You know, that.
Well, that's all, you're 100% right. You know, how women perceive themselves, you know, is a major issue in society as they become business leaders and social leaders and everything else. And we are developing leaders. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And I'll give you one prime example. You'll meet this young lady at some point, but we have a girl named America. She has tested into Phoenix Military Academy 1+ school on the near west side. She's going to be the captain of their girls team for 4 years. She'll end up being an all-stater, maybe Fargo All-American level. You know, she'll probably go on to wrestling college. She probably weighs less now than when she did when we met her 5 years ago. And when she first started coming around at the beginning of when we first opened the facility over a year and a half now, she wouldn't eat anything but junk food. You know, she was almost oppositional defiant. You know, and she was a tough wrestler. She's just mean, tough girl, but it wasn't really coachable. You know, and in the last year and a half, we have watched her body, her mind, her attitude, everything transform. She's an unusually positive, upbeat, powerful young woman now, and she's going to take over for Monica as our girls' captain someday.
Wow!
Because she's a workhorse. She's there every day. You know, and you know, she's going to graduate at 18, a totally different animal, and she's going to kick a lot of butt. Like I'm excited to see what she does professionally. You know, and it goes from everything from, you know, marrying someone who will push you as opposed to dominate you, you know, or, you know, there's all these things that go into that I am imagining that you read about in society about women who maybe don't have great self,
right.
You know, whatever it is, thoughts. I'm drawing a blank, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, they have such self-esteem, self-confidence, and it's way more than, hey, I have the ability to defend myself, which they do. And that's awesome. Yes. And that is awesome.
We've got an amazing story about that. I'll tell you that offline.
Oh, but, okay. Yeah. Good.
I'm married to a power broker. My wife is an absolute, one of the toughest humans I've ever met. She's a 5'2", gorgeous blonde. But she walks into a boardroom, you know, she's there, you know. And so I want I want Monica and America to walk into a board, into
Yes.
when they're lawyers or doctors or whatever
Yeah.
they're doing, and I want them to command the room the way my wife does. I want them to have the self-confidence to go over after promotions, to believe they deserve a spot at the table, all the rest of it. So, and we're seeing that with the girls. So
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, one more thing about the girls too. I feel like, and again, I'm not sure, but are they as large from a percentage wise as the boys team? Like, I feel like you have a lot of participation for both.
you saw a lot of girls at the senior night because girls love the senior night stuff. They love getting dressed up. So they came in bigger numbers. But no,
Okay.
our girls are about 20% of our total population, which is 14% higher than the national average. So
Yeah.
Beat the Streets Chicago is on par with Beat the Streets National, which is 20% girls. So of the 20,000 plus kids we serve around the country, the girls are 20% of that. So our numbers are very high, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
and they're growing. We actually
Yeah.
have a call with a Fargo champ and a world team member who just moved to Chicago for medical school. So we may have a dynamite new
Oh,
coach.
that would be really cool.
So,
I hope that works out.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but it's tough to find female coaches right now because there's not 2 or 3 generations of thousands and thousands of ex wrestlers yet, and so the really good ones are getting snatched up by colleges, and so we're really fighting we're just kind of scrapping uphill for it, but we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many limited, like you said, you already said it. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many few unicorns out there, for sure. That's pretty. So let me also ask this. I'd be totally remiss, but for those who want to get involved, maybe locally from a Chicago perspective, but nationally, they want to support Beat the Streets. How can they do it? What's the best method to do it, or all the methods that you can share for people who might feel moved by this and want to get involved?
Okay, thank you for asking that. That's important. This is super important.
Sure.
So we have a mentoring program. Those mentors are mostly ex-wrestlers who come and they are part of our Life Champions Academy, which is something our kids apply for. It's a really important deal. The Life Champions Academy, the mentors are part of that, and they help with the classroom portion. So there's 2 hours of classroom. There's an hour-long lunch. We cater lunch for the kids, and then there's a 2-hour elite level wrestling practice. And so the mentors then get their shoes on and get on the mat with the kids. Most of these guys are ex-college wrestlers, cool. But they're also very successful students and now young professionals. So you could be we're looking for mentors always. We're really looking for female mentors. We're always looking for coaches. That's volunteered or paid positions, depending on what your commitment can be. We are always looking for volunteers, and this cannot be understated. Okay, I'm going to go work a tournament at Beat the Streets. That doesn't seem like it's meaningful. It's incredibly meaningful. We have a huge national tournament coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're fighting to find volunteers. But could you get, the real question is, don't look at it as I'm a table worker. Can I volunteer a day that's going to help move Chicago wrestling forward? That's going to help serve our kids. That's going to create, it's an incredible venue. It's an incredible event, and it's for our kids. The reason we host this is because our kids can't always travel to Indianapolis for a major tournament, or go out to Iowa, and maybe can't afford it. Our kids go for a reduced cost or free. So. So the 4 T's are time, talent, treasure, and ties in the nonprofit world. If you know somebody that was an ex-wrestler who maybe is professionally successful, and you can put me in contact with them, they could become a donor. You could become a donor yourself. We're always looking for people to sign up for our monthly giving. Give $10 a month. That's a packet of cigarettes, a Starbucks,
a cup of coffee
from Starbucks. You can give $25 a month. Or you can come to an event. So we have people, we have an NCAA watch party the night of the NCAA finals. So we have all these opportunities for people to be kind of in the circle, and that as donors, as people who come to events the way you did and volunteer, which we appreciate. So there's that, and then we're looking for big donors, small donors, everybody in between. We're looking for connections to other wrestling people or other people who care about youth in Chicago. Don't have to be a wrestling person. In fact, some of our most impactful partners are non-wrestling people right now. So there's that. Where if you're super serious and you're super invested, we're always looking for board members, and we've got kind of a line of people that are potential board members. So there's a lot there.
Mhm.
But if you like our message, reach out to me. We can find
Yeah.
a way to get you involved. And it may be one day of volunteerism a year. It may be, hey, I want to be on your advisory board. It may be, we have a young professionals board, which is essentially like, the older board with the goal of getting a bunch of young people who they do a lot more fun, a little bit more loose, fun stuff, but they do some fundraising for us, but they're functioning in a very, kind of like a board, very philanthropic minded. And the goal is that we're training future board members for Beat the Street Chicago, for Big Brothers, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Our goal is to create a philanthropic atmosphere where
Mhm.
people understand that giving back is a big deal.
You have a really great structure. You really have a really good to nurture these kids to not only stay involved through maturity, but also, again, to attract others. So that's great. Yeah. I lied though. Actually, one more question. So
Okay.
what are the best places or ways for folks to reach out to you if they do have questions directly and they want to reach out to you?
So there's like info@btschicago.org is on our website, but my email is mpowell@btschicago.org. It's on our website. And really, frankly, everybody in the wrestling world has my cell phone number. I'm easy to get a hold of through text or a phone call or an email, or they can just reach out through our website. There's a whole volunteer application. There's a coach's application on our website. Our website is btschicago.org. You can find out about our board, about our staff, about our programming. I don't know if people are listening to this who have kids. We have wrestling throughout the city, so not just at that facility at Midway. We are in partnership with University of Chicago using their wrestling room in Hyde Park. These are major partners of ours, so these are major sites. We're at the old Gordon Tech facility in the cafeteria in partnership with DePaul Prep.
Wow.
We use their cafeteria, and we're starting a new program at Taft High School in Norwood Park. But we also have neighborhood clubs. We run a whole league in Chicago Public Schools at 20 different schools. So there's a lot of opportunity to get kids on the mat and get them into our programming. And our programming is what I'm most proud of. We haven't talked about it, but I think we're the best in the business in sports-based youth nonprofit in Chicago.
Well, let's expand. Yeah, I mean, we have a couple more minutes for sure. And yeah.
So, we just hired Alex Magical, who's 2 or 3 times. He's a 3-time NCAA qualifier at Division I NCAA qualifier. Wrestled for me, was state finalist for me. If I could have ever chosen one kid that I coached to come back and coach with us, it was Alex Magical.
Awesome.
And so we recruited him hard. We gave him a second. So he's working part-time in the office, but he's also coaching with us. He's going to run the Avondale location. We brought in Rochelle, who is the best wrestler from the city of Chicago in the last 20 years, 2-time state champ, was 3rd in the U.S. Open in Greco at Illinois, just graduated from Illinois. He's coaching with us at Hyde Park. Mike Boyd is a Southwest Side legend. It was the athlete of the decade in the Chicago Tribune. He's also probably the best builder of culture and community of any coach I ever coached with at Oak Park, and I coached with some incredible coaches. But in terms of the big picture, building community, building culture, that's why I went after him. He's also a minority from the South Side who grew up in the neighborhood where our facility is, right down the street.
Perfect.
So he runs our facility. Alexis Rivera, who was a city kid, brother went to prison, and he got picked out of the hallways by a coach at Weber on the west side. Weber's closed now; it's a Catholic school. And 3 years later, won the state championship. So Alexis is old school tough, and he's a great coach. So we have gone after and paid people in a way that a for-profit club would.
Right.
But they have exclusively coached with us because we are not for profit, and we are not against that model, but we are the antithesis of that model. Because what's happening is the great programming is moving to the burbs for kids who have a mom with a minivan and $1,800 or $2,000 a season, right? This is geographically and financially accessible, outstanding programming, the equivalent of the best clubs in the suburbs, in the city of Chicago. So we've created this model that we believe you can be what we call a life champion off the mat, and that's a really important piece to us. But we think you can also be a wrestling champion in the city. We proved this out at Oak Park. I don't know how many kids spilled across Austin, the border between the West Side and Oak Park, and found our wrestling program. One of them became an Olympian and world medalist, so I don't know how many of those kids we got at Oak Park who ended up being all-staters, state champion, Division I scholarship kids who, if they didn't move from the West Side, would have never had that opportunity. And so that's what we're creating. That's what we have created, and that's what we're seeing in the city. It's a matter of time, but the city high schools are going to start whipping people pretty soon.
Oh, it's going to happen soon. Yeah. I mean, you have the numbers, and they're building for sure these kids, but also your facilities are impressive. And I'm sure you have a grand vision, but man, I was impressed. I was walking through it. I'm like, I went to several schools that didn't look like this combined. I was like, this is good.
I tell everybody it looks like the best Division III facilities out there. I mean, it doesn't look like Ohio State or Michigan's room, but it's not a $50 million, but it's a $2 million buy and build out. It is a real deal wrestling facility, with a weight room, a classroom. Our kids, classrooms full every day now, with kids getting tutored, doing their homework. So it's a real nonprofit wrestling facility. It's beautiful. My favorite thing to do is buy people tacos and give, for lunch, and give them the VIP tour. I would do that with anybody who reached out. So
awesome.
We're trying to spread the word, and nothing like this wrestling facility exists in Illinois. I mean, there's a place in Edwardsville that's comparable, but it's pretty unique. So
absolutely, yeah, it's beautiful, man. Mike, again, thank you so much. This was completely my pleasure. I really appreciate you sharing so much about the program and yourself, and I'll be sure to link the email and the website and everybody as well. So if they want to learn more, it'll be really accessible for them. And let me just give you one more opportunity, maybe just for final words. Is there anyone you want to say anything to, or again, just final words?
I am grateful to you for this. I'm grateful for anybody who's spreading our mission and helping us reach new people. We are building an ecosystem of life-changing programming through wrestling in the city of Chicago, and we want people to be involved. And so I appreciate this. I appreciate being able to tell our story and highlight our kids and our programming and our coaches.
My honor and pleasure. Thank you again, Mike. Again, this is true story. John Gibson. Today's episode was with Mike Powell, Executive Director of Beat the Streets. Again, thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.